let's say you and I, we go into the wilderness, we do it intentionally. We get ready for it. We prepare for it. We load up a backpack with food and water pumps for pumping water and everything that we need, clothing, something to lay and sleep in, all that kind of stuff we do because we intentionally want to get into the wilderness. Most people's experience, though, is the wilderness is just foisted on them. Mm-hmm. It just all of a sudden, bam, they're in an area that they are not prepared for. They didn't see it coming. That's quite a bit of a different story, isn't it?
It is. It is, but it's also the story of it's also the start of the story of what God can do in wilderness. Deuteronomy 8:2-3 has always been sort of my fundamental piece for understanding how God uses wilderness. In that set of verses, Moses is explaining what really begs for explanation, and that is, why would the Lord take Israel out of Egypt and instead of moving them immediately into Canaan, into the promised land, into Israel, has them spend decades in a wilderness context? And Moses says he accomplished three things. He humbled them. You need that to serve well, I think. Mm-hmm. He tested them. He confronted them with a question, will you trust me now? It's easy to trust when you're in Egypt, when all that you need is within arm's reach. But will you trust me now, when the fundamentals for survival aren't in view? And thirdly, I want to teach you that I'm capable of providing even when for you, even when you can provide for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think that in order to accomplish those things, it's almost of necessity that the people we meet in the Bible who go into wilderness go in unprepared. It's only then that they can be fully humbled and really tested and really learn the lesson of God's provision.
Yeah, that's so true. If you tell somebody that a month from now they're going to lose their job, well, they can prepare, right? They have a month to kind of get in the right mindset, prepare financially, do whatever. But now if somebody loses their job day of, and the next day they're unemployed and without income, that changes everything.
So true.
When I grew up in Illinois, everywhere you went, there were cornfields if you were out of the city. But when I went to Israel, my eyes were open. I sort of compare it to my experience. I lived in Washington State for a number of years, and they have the 7 unique geological formations found on Earth. So you can go to a forest, or you can go to an ocean, you can go to a desert, you can go, to all of these different formations. When I got to Israel, it was like you leave Jerusalem and all of a sudden you're in the midst of the wilderness, a very short distance. And so what I think a lot of people don't really understand, like maybe you can speak to this about the temptations of Jesus in the wilderness and how, he grew up in Galilee or ministered in Galilee, but then all of a sudden he's out here in the midst of the wilderness with 40 days of no food and water.
Yeah, that is one of the most dramatic geographic shifts you'll find in the Gospels, and folks often don't notice the incredible shift there. So he spends the bulk of his life up in Galilee in an agricultural landscape. He comes down to the Jordan River, a place that is known for its transitions, and goes through this remarkable transition as he leaves behind the quiet life of the North for the ministry life that is to come. And then, just as quickly, he's whisked away from all of that by the Spirit into the wilderness. And it's this, you almost should feel the whiplash of going Galilee, Jordan River, wilderness for 40 days. It goes from good to bad to worse in terms of the landscape that you're in. And it becomes, as wilderness so often was, part of that formation experience that helps us understand Jesus was fully capable of putting himself in the worst of it. I make the observation in the book that I believe when Matthew tells the story, he almost to a phrase in the sentences that the brief accounting of that story of Jesus' temptation links it to Israel's stay in the wilderness. Now, it's not the same wilderness, two different wilderness, but same ecosystem. And what I see there is Jesus is able to put himself, I mean, right out of the gate, we see this right after his baptism. He's able to put himself in the worst of situations, the most challenging ecosystem you can imagine. And in that space where Israel failed to be fully humbled and tested and taught and to demonstrate faith, Jesus could and did. And what a way to begin, right? And we won't get how powerful that is unless we see how quickly we are moved with him from Galilee to the Jordan River into wilderness.